Okay, our palette is mixed and we are ready to start painting. We're going to start at the top with the hat. These are the brushes that I'll be using, and note that the face is about 2 inches tall. The hat's just a little taller than the face. Working on top of a dried underpainting, which I painted in transparent oxide brown. And I'm going to have my proportion tool. I'm going to be checking measurements every now and then. It's not super important. Here's my setup. I've got my computer screen on the right, and the computer screen is zoomed in. I have a really big close-up image ready to go there. But next to that computer screen, which you don't see, I have a actual size where if I need to grab a measurement with the proportion tool, I can work one-to-one measuring by doing that. So that smaller face is actually only 2 inches tall. I don't want to work from a 2-inch tall reference. So hence the large blowed up version on the computer screen there. And then my palette sits on my little music stand to the left, which we already mixed and is ready to go. So I don't use any solvent in my studio. It's a toxic-free zone. I try to keep it really clean in here. And I just wipe with a paper towel. If I can't get a really clean brush, then I'll just use a new fresh brush. And I try to keep my brushes situated so that I'm using one brush for the darker colors and a different brush for the lighter colors. This helps me avoid having to constantly dip into solvent and clean my paintbrush, which I'm not a big fan of doing. Not even the odorless mineral spirits. I just don't want to be dipping into that all the time, and then it can, water down, so to speak, your paint. And I want to work with pure, just paint right out of the tube. And I'm using more professional grade paint, which has plenty of oil in it, and it's buttery and nice, feels comfortable, going onto my wood panel, which is what I'm working on, a oil primed wood panel. And if you saw in the beginning there, it's quite large. I forget the exact measurements. I'll have to tell you guys at some point here, but it's a pretty large painting. The focus of the painting's the entire figure, and there's a whole narrative and some landscape in there as well. But I just wanted to show you guys, since this channel is geared towards portrait painting, I really wanted to zoom in and let you see how I handle this tiny face. So when we get into actually painting the face here in just a moment, I'll start talking to you about how I managed to still capture the likeness in this little tiny face versus when I'm working on a larger, more true to life face, which is about 8 inches in comparison to this little 2-inch face. I'm going to be putting in some of the dark shadow colors in the hat, some of the dark colors in the hair. I want to be able to gauge my flesh color values with some of the darks laid in. That's a mistake that beginning painters will make, trying to go in and paint the face without having some of the background darks or surrounding darks laid down. Now, you can always adjust those as you go, as you continue to build up detail, if you need to add highlights and all that. But I definitely want to just have some of the darker shadow colors laid down, so I have that to play off of. It was fun painting this hat. I'm trying to just lay down brush strokes without doing too much blending. I find that just laying down a stroke that's not quite, not that much longer than the actual bristles on the paintbrush. So typically, if your paintbrush is a 1/4 inch long bristle, your brush stroke shouldn't technically be much longer than a 1/2 inch. So I'm just trying to dip into fresh paint and then lay down some of the strokes, either overlapping slightly or directly next to one another. I tend to work with these flat brushes. They're number 4s, and I do have a 0 liner for some of the tinier areas that I might need to get into. But for the most part, I'm working with this number 4 flat brush. It's not too hard of a brush, which lends itself to my style of painting. It's close to a sable, but a little bit stiffer, but not much. It's definitely nowhere as stiff as like a hog's hair or something like that. So I'm really loving these brushes by Trykel. I'm usually working with rosemary brushes, but I got turned on to these and I'm kind of sticking with them. I really think they hold up well to the paint and cleaning and all that, and maintain their shape nicely. I've probably cleaned these brushes a bit here. So that just popped up. I added transparent oxide yellow to my palette. I wanted to be able to kind of knock down a little bit of that green that was coming out in the hat and bring it more towards a yellow, which by doing that really just made it more of a taupe or a beige, which was what I was going for. So for the hat band, I wanted to lay down some of the base, kind of the local color, which it reads sort of this sort of sky blue, which is almost the color in the background. So I put some of that down, and then we'll be painting in some of the thinner lines with the dark brownish color that we mixed earlier, and that'll help to bring in that band and have that situated. The way that I work in the selective start method, I basically finish an area pretty close to it before I move to another area. And I just follow that sort of process throughout the entire figure. And what I'll do is I'll just keep working my way down the figure. The fan brush you see here, I'm knocking back some of the glare. Since I don't do a lot of blending, the paint ridges can start to build up, and the light above me that I'm working under is creating a little bit of a glare, not terribly so. But if I knock it down just slightly with the tiniest, softest touch with that fan brush, then it takes care of it. Sometimes I like to use the fan brush to make it look like there's a little bit of movement there too. I'll let the edges of what I'm painting get whisked kind of in the direction that the fan brush takes it, and I'll leave it there. I think it looks like motion, and I really like that effect. But we're just about ready to get into painting the face.